Hey folks, Studio here. In about 30 some hours, we're going to be looking at playoffs. Playoffs for League of Legends. It's going to be so cool, so awesome. And because of that, I'm not going to talk about it till maybe the night of, or morning of, the night before of. And the reason for that is because, we can really get hyped for it. But right now, let's go ahead. Let's focus on just random stuff that might show up in Worlds. Random strategies. In this case, it's going to be Jungle Diana. Now, this Jungle Diana came from a 66-minute game, and I'm not going to cover the entire game because, oh my god, it is a long game. And the focus from Jungle Diana really shifts. It no longer becomes just about her, it becomes about the team playing as a whole. So, I actually want to cover the game and keep showing Jungle Diana in late game fights, and looking at late game fights is actually really cool because you don't get a chance to. But today, we're only going to be covering about 30 some minutes of the game. It's a 66-minute game, we'll cover about half of it. So, tomorrow, look for the same game, look for lots of team fights. Right now, it's going to be Diana. It's going to be Diana, Diana, Diana. So, let's go ahead, go into the game. Now, this is Orbit versus Monomaniac Ferris from the TSM Invitational last weekend. This was game 1 of set 2 of the Grand Finals. Orbit had just lost 2 games pretty convincingly to Monomaniac Ferris. And this was kind of, their chance to come back and shine, seeing as the set had just restarted. They came from winners. They were looking for a stomp, looking for a chance to actually beat Monomaniac. So this is not going to be a replay about just, jungling as Diana. It's going to be a replay about getting your butt kicked in the jungle. Because that can happen. That can happen in a lot of ways. And Ferris does a great job exploiting how people can be punished in the jungle. High is not going to have a good time. He's going to play safely in a lot of ways, play dangerously in a lot of ways, and Ferris pretty much abuses it all. But let's just go into Diana, how she jungles. So first of all, runes and masteries will be at the bottom of the page in the description. As for how Diana actually jungles, well, her passive is really good for it. It's an AoE cleave, just auto attack, keep the enemy creeps grouped, and you'll do a lot more damage. Crescent Strike will be very high damage for actually killing those creeps. Once High has a point into Pale Cascade, it's a really good shield. I mean, at this point, level 1, it shields 126 damage with that AP ratio being factored in, which is really, really good. That's a very good AP ratio. And of course, Moonfall, it's a great ganking to skill if you can get in close enough and pull someone towards you. And once you're level 6, that's really easy. Before 6, Diana ganks kind of suck. You just kind of do some damage and maybe walk up to them if they let you. She has decent move speed, but not, super high, I'm going to catch you no matter what. Now, important thing to note, Ferris has a ward here. Look at that ward. High. He started with Crescent Strike so he could have some vision and reveal the enemy team if they happen to be hiding somewhere. But at this point, he's going to start jungling. You'll notice that he takes a decent amount of damage, but nothing exceptionally high from Wraiths. He used Crescent Strike and used auto attacks. He was able to clear it very quickly with a bit of help from Nutanso, which is normally what you expect as a jungler. Miss a bit of HP. If you can avoid it, it's okay. If not, you'll live. So he starts red, and I actually wondered, why does he start red? Like, what is the point of it? Well, when Diana ganks, having decreased cooldowns is a much bigger deal than having the damage from red and the slow from red. Because once High starts ganking, he wants to be level 4, have a point in Moonfall, and at that point, walk up to someone, get the slow off, and that's all the slow you'll need. If you have short cooldowns, Diana does a lot of damage, so you don't really need the slow or the damage from red buff. And he's going to go ahead and take a route that would normally let him hit level 4 at about the time he would finish blue buff. So most people go Wraiths, red, wolves, blue. High goes Wraiths, red, back to Wraiths, then back to wolves, then he could go to blue buff. And he'd be level 4, he could go gank. He'd have a little bit of red buff left, but at that point, he'd have the decreased cooldowns and be really good for a gank. Now note a few things. Mandatory Cloud just stole the hell out of that blue Wraith with his mid-Jace. Acceleration Gate and Static Shock combined did a crap load of damage. This ward, very important. They actually let Xmithy go into the enemy jungle and steal blue buff. Yeah, he even missed his smite, so if I had been just lucky and tried to Crescent Strike over the wall, he could have stolen it. So at this point, High is level 2 at the 3-minute mark. What level is Xmithy? Level 3, just barely hitting it. But he doesn't really have that much jungle left. Wolves will spawn relatively soon. Golems take a while to get to, and High actually tries to avoid them. He doesn't want to waste the time. And his mid lane just died. So he's not in a good spot. He's kind of in a weak position. He can get a bit of experience mid lane. 3 creeps goes a long way. when you've missed so much in the jungle. But he's only getting this because his mid laner is dead, and this is not the situation you want to be in. Luckily for him, the bot lane, V-Team, just finished off Afremu, which is relatively rare given the fact that throughout the tournament, Afremu was killing more or less everybody. But, you know, it's a good sign he doesn't really have to go bottom for a while then, because he knows they should be okay. Now, he goes back to the jungle, you know, doesn't have mana because he lost the blue buff, and he's going to just be very conservative with his spells. In this creep camp, he didn't really use anything. He used a smite and used some auto attacks. He's level 3 though, and I mean, Xmithy, he's level 4, doing a decent job going through it, looking for ganks, looking for aggression. High really can't do as much here. Now he's going to go for a gank here. Yuzuki has no CC of his own and doesn't have exhaust. So when he comes out of the bush, all he can really do is hope to get close enough to balls and get the pull in. He actually blows his flash, and that's important to remember because when you have a flash down against an aggressive jungler like Diana, it's going to be a major deal. If at any point High shows up with his ultimate, or you know, just some surprise and just gets the pull on the balls, or he can even flash forward to do so, he's more or less going to get the kill. It's not necessarily guaranteed, but it's very likely. Now, High, level 3, can do stuff like Wraiths, can just do stuff like Golems, but very slowly try and come back. He's going to go ahead and hold mid for a bit because he knows that Yen just went down. That's a lot of creeps to not have go anywhere, and Mentor Cloud's about to do something really awesome that will also shut down High for a bit. So, shock over the wall, to the skies, use the E, gets that blue wraith, walks out. High just got a bit of experience, a very decent amount of experience from those creeps, and then he got counter jungle at the same time, so he's going to be slowed down quite a bit. So, what Mandrake God is doing is just applying pressure non-stop. The one thing High has going for him is that, well, Yantanso is not doing too well in the mid lane either, so that lets him pick up a lot of experience in response. But he decides he has to try and make a play, he has to try and slow down Xmithy somehow, because he's so far ahead, and actually goes for a counter jungle, and it is not successful, because he walks right on top of Ward. There's really nothing High can do right now, except get knocked back. He walks away, he runs away, it's not going to work, he dies. So this is one of those situations where as a jungler, it's really easy to get discouraged. It's really easy to say, I'm screwed, I'm dead, rest in peace, rest in peace. There's nothing I can do anymore. And the truth is, what can he really do in the lanes? Can he go mid lane and gank? No, Yen just doesn't have anything. He actually is using Ignite just to force Mantra Cloud off of him. This will give him a good chance to free farm. He has no mana, he has nothing right now. Bot lane, Lemonation and V-Team are doing well, but not that well. And then top lane, Yuzuki's kind of in a bit of pain, doesn't have CC of his own. Ball is doing very well because of his just massive sustain as Cho'Gath, and guaranteed harass with Feral Scream. So, he can't really gank the lanes that well, he can't really do a lot right now. His main goal is just get experience somehow. He can hit level 6, and when he hits level 6, he's going to be so much more effective, and he knows this, so he'll do stuff like this. Just hold the creep wave. It's not the best situation, but, it's enough to get by. Now, it's important to note he's actually maxing out Crescent Strike over Pale Cascade. The reason for this, you do more damage with Crescent Strike, the cooldown goes down, and it lets you get a really good chase on. We'll get into the chasing situation once it starts showing up and he hits level 6. But there's a few tools you can do as Diana and mechanics you can use to get some extra chase on to be really effective with the ultimate and never really put it on cooldown. But High, he's just trying to do whatever the hell he can to get back in this game. And that's what you do. You go for experience, you make sure you try and control the buffs you do have the timings of, which in this case, he knew when red spawns. He knows when blue spawns too as well. But in this, he can get it right now. And he's not going to waste any time. No one else on his team can really use it, like Ezreal can, but he doesn't need to give up the experience. Ezreal should be fine in the bot lane. It's 32 CS to 47, he has a kill. He's good. So High will greedily take that red buff and just focus on jungling for a bit. Focus on just going anywhere where there's experience. Unfortunately, Mandatory Cloud stole Blue Wraith again, so he got set back. At this point, actually doing Wraith is almost a negative for High, because every time he does it, it's just another chance for Mandatory Cloud to get a big Blue Wraith. But he's roaming, he sees Xmithy in the bot lane, is like, this is his chance to finally go ahead and get that blue buff. He actually looks for a gank here, or not that blue buff, but those Wraiths. He looks for a gank here. Mandatory Cloud is far ahead. He's level 7 to level 6, and it's also incredibly hard to gank Jace, because he's really fast, and he can apparently do that. He can apparently just jump over that wall. I see why ManCloud plays Jace in the mid lane now, because he can do that, and it's awesome. Which I actually might cover later. But, back to High. He sees Yuzuki up in top lane. He goes for a gank here just to help out, and this is, one of the few situations he can really be that effective in. It's a gank someone else started where he's just coming in to really clean up, and there's no reasonable escape option. So why is that? Well, Flash was barely coming up for balls. Yuzuki has a damage to finish him off, but not necessarily survive the exchange. Hai was really there to make sure Yuzuki didn't die. Not necessarily to kill Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath would have probably died on his own, but it might have been a 1-for-1 exchange instead of a 1-for-0. And with Hai up here, they can actually push the creep wave really quickly, deny it, and make sure that a lot of experience is being missed unless somebody shows up to the lane. In which case, if Xmithia shows up, you can go into his jungle, you can have a good idea where he is, you can play a bit more aggressive in the other lanes. If it's not Xmithia, if no one shows up, all these creeps get denied to the turret. But, Hai, he's level 6, he's finally hit level 6, it's Diana. He has the ultimate. He can actually engage into ganks and be useful now. Not that he really could before. He could gank before. It just doesn't work out very well. He'd have to, flash to keep up with people who use their flash. He doesn't have the same tools that other gankers have. And really, once your level 6's work, for example, it's the same thing. You should still jungle. You should still have a lot of jungle presence, focus on clearing camps, of course. But when you go for ganks, and you can be much more aggressive about it, they're much more likely to succeed. And it's actually scary because what if you fall too far behind as you try to reach that point? For example, Xmithia, he's level 7, how far is he into the level? He's almost level 8. Hai is a full level behind, and that's just not the position you will ever want to be in compared to the enemy jungler. It's not easy to get experience in the jungle, it can take quite a while, it's very easy for it to get counter-jungled quite often, because for example, that blue wraith surviving for this amount of time, I believe that's at least 10 seconds, is incredibly surprising. So a lot of things can go wrong when you do go for the jungle and for the CS. And you just need to stay focused, you just make sure you keep getting experience, keep going, and keep doing stuff. Now, Hai ganking balls, how's it going to work? Well, he wants to try and avoid getting silenced by him. But if he can land a Crescent Strike and then use ultimate to keep up with him, he can keep using Crescent Strike, and just every time the Crescent Strike lands, he can go ahead and keep him in. He decides screw it and just goes for the dash in there. But what's the result? Balls flashes away, but he was in a turret anyway, so he probably would have been safe. In this case, it's what happened before. He gets a turret, or not turret, but a flash blown, and later on, unless he's right by the turret, Hai should be able to show up and just gank and get something done. Now, because that was a very fast gank, he might have had a chance to actually show up to Dragon, but, Ferris, the second they saw that Hai wasn't there, it's like, let's group up for Dragon, do it quickly, do it safely, do it now. And that's something you always risk. Hai goes up top, this leaves Dragon open, this leaves bottom open. So when you rebuild yourself top as a jungler past, the 8-minute mark or 10-minute mark, you risk losing Dragon if it's up. If it's up, do whatever you want, go top as much as you want and can, you're going to be fine. If you don't have if you have a Dragon to worry about, you can't go top without expecting some sort of loss. In that case, the only thing that was blown was a flash, so it's a flash for 1,000 gold for the team. That's usually pretty effective. Now Hai, he has to start making plays happen up at the top lane. He has to be there to back up Yuzuki because he's blown so much, and that's really his only opening at this point. Manta Ray Cloud is actually going to be relatively gankable, but Nien, he's having trouble in the lane. He may not have that much damage. Bot lane doesn't need him. It's going to be top where he makes the plays. Xmithia also knows this, though. And it's something you have to remember. Think about where the enemy jungler wants to be and be there at the same time. You make situations like this happen where ball is being protected, Yuzuki getting zoned out a bit, and they're not letting Yuzuki take a dominant position over Balls. Balls, who has a lot more CS, despite that death, will have more gold at this point. So Balls, he's in a great spot. Yuzuki, not so much. He's in a bit of a weak spot. So Hai knows this, he's actually trying to camp here. And Xmithia knows they're both trying to camp here. Let's go ahead and see one of the quickest fights ever. And then they fight, and they disengage because both of them are very scared of each other's damage. So what happened in that fight? Yuzuki goes onto Balls. Balls had the Scream on cooldown, tried to land the Rupture. Yuzuki waited for it to be missed, and then used the ultimate, and they both killed each other because he just had too much damage. And this happens a lot. You'll notice, though, how quick Hai was to disengage, and Xmithia himself was relatively quick on the same quick disengage, quick draw. Now the reason for this is be confident or have no confidence. If you can do something or you can't do something. You don't have to do something. If you have to do something, usually you're going to die, and it's not going to be worth it. But for example, let's say you're trying to kill Xmithy at top lane is high. If he thinks, well, I can kill him right now, he'll go for the chase and keep killing. If he thinks, I can't, he'll back off. And it's important to really go for situations like that, where it's like, if I can do something, I'll do it. If not, why risk anything? Because Xmithy, he definitely could have killed High. High definitely could have killed Xmithy, but it would have required either a lot of bad play on their part, or, you know, something weird happening, or one just being a lot stronger than the other. Now, Xmithy looked towards bot lane. Android Cloud looked towards red buff and bot lane. And High didn't get caught. Now, why did that happen? Well, really just because he didn't pop out of the bush and check it. But you have to watch out for situations like that, because it's very easy to die and just get caught out doing something that seems safe. So Mandatory Cloud goes aggressive onto Nian. High lands a Crescent Strike, gets knocked back, and will try and go aggressive on a Mandatory Cloud now. So he uses the dash. It's still not on cooldown though, because he landed the Crescent Strike, so at any point, if he feels confident or lands another Crescent Strike, he can turn around and try to be aggressive. Now, does he feel confident? No, because he has no HP and Xmithy's chasing him. So he just goes for the retreat, stays alive, and stays safe. That's important to note. That's one of the big reasons that High will only use the ultimate unless he's going for a kill, like to finish someone off. He only uses the ultimate if Crescent Strike landed on them. And this lets him go ahead and stay aggressive, keep chasing somebody down, without having to worry about not having that cooldown up, because it's not a high damage cooldown necessarily, but it's very important for his damage. High though, he's level 9. The enemy team, how are they doing? They're doing okay. What has he really done so far? Well, he has 1 kill, 1 death, and 1 assist. He hasn't helped out that much. He hasn't really hurt his team though. And he needs to go ahead and make sure he helps him as much as possible. So he sees bot lane go down. What can he do? Well, you can go ahead and go for kills. You can go ahead and go for just turret defense. You have to think, what can you actually do as Diana in this situation? Now, he's going to take a risk, and let's look at his vision. He doesn't know Aframu's there. He doesn't know Muffin Cutie's gone back, but he sees Xmithy, he sees that Oracle, and he knows that getting a kill on something with Oracles is a big deal. So he actually goes for the engage. He lands the Crescent Strike, and he tries to chase down Xmithy. But Xmithy does have X-Drinker, and Aframu is trying to protect him. So High, what's he doing? Well, he saves the ultimate. He's trying to just get any kill at that point, and he's so close. He's so close. Xmithy. How much HP does he survive with? 30. And this is kind of one of those things where it's like, did he help his team? Yeah, he got a kill. That's pretty nice for him. It's not the best thing for the team, but it's okay. Did he hurt the team? Yes. The enemy team got more gold from that. Xmithy got more gold. Xmithy, looking at his buffs, got red buff refresh too. So now Xmithy's a bit of a danger, and at the same time, Aframu got an assist. Aframu dying also wasn't worth that much gold, because he's at 3 deaths right now. High dying was. So I'm going to say that trade sucked for High. It was not a good exchange. And how do you avoid those exchanges? Well, you just once again, you have to have that confidence. You have to either do it or don't do it. And you have to find those right situations where can you do it. When you do get into those situations, in that case, High went for a gank, and something comes up. In that case, it was misfortune having not backed. The question goes from do you do it or do you not do it to do you engage or do you disengage? And there's a lot of factors. If you can get away, for example, that's a huge factor, because if you can't get away, what is the point of disengaging? If you can get away, then you have to ask yourself, should I get away? Do I need to get away? Is it going to benefit me more to go for a kill here, or is it going to benefit me more to just not fight and disengage? It's kind of the same thing, like if you see people blow their summoners when they're almost guaranteed to die, that's one of the worst things you can do, because you accomplish nothing but you've used a long cooldown. If you're blowing summoners to survive fights, you're usually in a good spot, because it means you're denying the enemy team some gold. This just applies to general summoner usage. If you're going to get something out of it, it's okay to use a summoner. If you're not going to, or you're using too many resources on something, don't. Like, don't blow your flash just to get CS. It's not worth it in the end. Don't blow your flash to kill 1 guy, but still be surrounded by 3 guys, because you'll die. Now, this is one of the big things you can do with the bot lane. When you see the enemy team go for a gank, you show up and go for a counter gank. Elimination, will he survive? It's going to be tough, it's going to be tough. He's at 300 HP and High has finally shown up. Does he survive? Well, for this very second, yes. And he's able to go ahead, land the Crescent Strike on the Aframu, V-Teen. He's just able to auto-attack. And Muffin Cutie is being chased out after Aframo already goes down. Once again, he didn't get a kill, he's not worth a lot of gold. Xmithie also shows up though, and just walks right on out of there with the ultimate. Now, how did Hai know to do that? Let's go ahead and rewind. I know Jace was showing up, I'll show him in a sec. So he was just going for this because he thought it was a good gank cover opportunity. Yep, you want to do that. When you see that good chance to go for a kill, do it, go for it. Don't waste too much time, because like if you see them retreat or see them back up and you know they have good vision, obviously no reason for you to keep fighting. But in that case, it looked like a good situation. I mean, Mandatory Cloud isn't even nearby at this point. Now he is, but they just haven't retreated on orbit. That was a problem, just miscommunication. Nien dies in mid lane, Mandatory Cloud goes bot lane. What happens? What is the result? Not good for Hai. He does have his flash up though, and he's able to barely survive. It has VT and goes super aggressive and picks up a kill. That was less Hai being useful, though that was VT being very good as well as Hai being very good, and punishing the overextension from Mandatory Cloud. Now, what do you do as Hai in this situation? Mid lane, how's it doing? 147 CS to 161, but Nien is dying. Is that a bad thing? Well, how well can you gank Jace? If at this point, if Nien lands a rune prison, will it be enough to finish him off? Looking at his items, he has a Bloodthirster, 2 Doran's Blades, and a Hexdrinker. It'll be effective, but it may not be enough to land that kill, especially if he doesn't have the flash up, which we know he does. So go for the kill if you see him way out of position, maybe. Cho'Gath up in the top lane. Is he killable? Well, he has Large Rod, 2 Doran's Rings, and a Cage's Lucky Pick. As long as they don't get bursted on immediately, he's very squishy and very killable. So yes, no, maybe. Bot lane, Sona, Ezreal, once Sona has her ultimate up, you're almost guaranteed kills. And that's why Hai will see in the bot lane as well as that dragon pressure. They know that Yuzuki can come from top, he pushes very quickly, and he should be able to come back by before Cho'Gath can really do something. Hai is also just looking for general aggression, trying to stop Xmithie from doing anything, and actually shows up in a very bad spot, but gets away for a brief second before turning around and getting in that same bad spot again. So Xmithie's in the middle of the enemy team trying to catch him out, and he can't. He's Olaf. What's he gonna do? And Hai though, he chases, he stays aggressive, he stays offensive, and he's able to go ahead and chase out 2 people as the rest of his team caught Mandatory Cloud coming up from lane, and they can do Dragon now. Now, what made them able to do Dragon? Well, Mandatory Cloud dying, I'd say, is the big thing, because they blew so much. But the enemy team, they had Xmithie, who was low on HP, Muffin Cutie, who just blew his ultimate flash and exhaust and was low on HP, Aframo, who was low on HP. So, was there anybody there, or actually I think Aframo was farming, but still, Aframo doesn't have a lot of items at this point. So was there anybody there who was threatening and scary and going to kill his team besides possibly Xmithie and possibly Aframo, who were underfarmed at the time, or, well, Aframo was underfarmed, Xmithie was low on HP? No, not really. So that's what made it okay to do. The same kind of applies to Baron, though in a much stricter way, because if they have magic damage, for example, you'll take a lot of magic damage because of Baron's debuff. So when you look for those opportunities to go for a global objective, it's going to be one of 2 things. You know they can't respond. So if you get an ace, you know they can't respond. If you get 4 kills or 3 kills, you know if they try and steal it, that's all they can do. The other option is going to be if you think they can't respond. So that's when you see them low on HP. That's when there's not a cold hard fact you can check and say, oh yeah, they're low on HP. Let's go ahead and do it now. Sometimes you can, of course. Sometimes you can, like let's say you've got good ward coverage and they're all hovering in the bush at 25% HP and then leaving the bush to go back to base. Okay, you can probably do Dragon then. If you see them just pop up in the map every now and then without that good ward coverage, that's less a question you know the answer to and a question you're guessing the answer to. And making guesses are pretty scary. That last match, or that last fight, that was more of a guess to get that dragon afterwards. Beforehand, though, that was just kind of, let's see if it works. And at any point, what if Xmithie had shown up with Ghost and tried to steal it with Smite? That could have happened. It wasn't likely to happen, but it was a possibility. They didn't know if he had Smite up, they didn't know if he was feeling confident, or if the enemy team had the ward down. In the end, it didn't really matter, but it could have happened. And that's kind of one of the risks you take with not knowing the full situations. Hai, he's going to get himself into a very bad spot and then a very fine spot right afterwards. He gets chased down by balls, chased down by Mandatory Cloud, but the rest of his team shows up and they're able to pick up that kill. Now, I want to talk about what High actually does. So he sees Mandatory Cloud there, and he walks towards him. He doesn't walk into the brush, doesn't walk within range to necessarily be comboed, but surprises him for a second. He walks into another bush, sees balls, and at this point he actually stays to fight because he knows the rest of his team is showing up. He runs for a second, but he actually used the pull just to keep balls chasing and keep balls close. Now, this was a bit of a mind game. You know, retreat for a second, bait out the enemy team before you turn around and go for a kill. It's very effective. And why do they get these kills? Because the enemy team thought, well, you know, let's catch high. And being able to go ahead and game the system, play enemy teams like that is a huge deal in this game. You bait them into bad situations and then you punish them. In that case, that was Orb getting a double kill, or a single kill off nothing really. No big ultimates blown, no anything blown. And this lets mid lane snowball. Now at this point, Orbit's actually looking like they're in a good spot. They're down in gold, yes, but only by 1,000, despite a larger deficit earlier. They're able to push down mid, they're able to stay aggressive in lane. In terms of experience, they're not quite ahead, but they're fairly equal. Actually, bot lane for Orbit's a higher level than their bot lane on Ferris. So, what is High to do at this point? Well, you know, get blue buff to rise, kind of do maintenance. At this point, once you reach the 20-minute mark, once you're not just ganking lanes, you're more of a roamer. Not a roaming anything in particular, it all depends on the jungler, but you're going to be moving around the map a lot. Once your team decides to start going for pushes, you could always stay in the jungle, but the idea here, especially with a lot of Korean teams having done this, is once you reach the 20-minute mark, the jungler stops getting that much experience, and the jungle stops getting that much CS because you can focus on the lanes and focus on trying to pressure people in those lanes. That used to be a very big deal. Like junglers used to just kind of stop jungling at one point and just focus on ganking. Not really the case, but once you reach a certain point, the mid lane will start taking wraiths much more often, which is currently what Intensa's doing after backing up, and the rest of the team's going to take wraiths really often. That's okay, because you can make up that golden experience by killing someone, but you don't have a fallback, and that's, I think, the scariest thing about being a jungler at this point in the game. What is your defense? What was High's defense earlier? Well, if neutral camps were being counter jungled, go for the creep waves when the rest of your team has to go back. If his team was doing fine and didn't need to go back, he could, you know, focus on the jungle, but it's not necessarily that big a deal because his team is fine. Now, what is his goal? What is his team's goal? How does he want to get into a fight? He has a chain vest. He's going to build that into his Zonias. He has a Deathfire Grasp and a couple of Doran's Rings. How does that convert into teamfight potential? Because Diana has a very good single target burst, but that's not necessarily that good for a big team fight unless you kill the AD carry instantly, which hopefully Aftermove is not in a bad position for that. He wants to ult in, maybe with the Crescent Strike debuff on. He wants to ult in and use Moonfall, and in doing so he pulls everybody together. He doesn't follow up at that point. Lemonation on Sona is going to follow up and use the ultimate, the Crescendo, to actually go ahead and go for kills and be offensive. Now, how is that a good idea? Well, you know, he doesn't really do a lot. He can survive. If he survives, he does a lot of damage, but it's hard for him to survive. What are his base stats? Relatively low. He's got 2,000 HP at level 15. That's not bad, but he does have the Doran's Rings. What does he do besides that? A bit of damage. Crescent Strike has a good cooldown. Pale Cascade has a bit of a long cooldown, and then that's kind of it. He can keep his he can keep the Crescent Strike debuff on, and use Luna Rush a lot. That's okay, but that's not that useful. So he knows what's useful. He knows he can't really do that much. He's going to be the initiator. Now, I love this fight because High goes in aggressively just because he can, and he has that shield up. That doesn't really work out the best. He takes a bit of damage, but that's fine. It's okay to take a bit of damage to apply your own pressure and, you know, scare someone off a turret. Orbit's creeping up, though. They have all 5 people top. The same thing for Ferris. They want to take out these auto turrets, try and, you know, get a good advantage back. They lost their own auto turrets before. They were actually behind on gold for a while. They're trying to find that opening to get back ahead. Now, at this point, what does High try and do? He wants to try and find everybody clumped together so he can go ahead and use Moonfall to CC them all and deal a lot of damage. But Balls lands a Rupture, lands a Feral Scream, and that kills the initiation. What can High really do? Nothing. He takes a lot of damage from Mandatory Cloud. He just gets beaten up all over the place and dies. And as for the rest of the fight, what happens? Well, this is a pretty easily won fight for Ferris. Elimination, will you survive? No. So we're going to look at that fight in slow motion again. Because I like doing that. So, how does it start? Well, his turret's going to go down. Rest in peace. The rest of Orbit, who wasn't taking the turret, they're going to start showing up, start trying to be really offensive and chase down the enemy team because they think they have an advantage. But no one's tanky on Orbit. Nien doesn't have that many items. They don't really have a true tank because Diana's squishy too. Just has a chain fast. And this is the importance of really knowing the enemy team. Balls, if he'd been a normal Cho'Gath, wouldn't have done this much damage. He wouldn't have almost instantly killed Niantanso. But he is. He is Cho'Gath, and he is AP. If he'd been normal Cho'Gath, it wouldn't have been that bad, but it's not the case. So, they lose Nien, they lose a lot of their damage, and the rest of Ferris just shows up and kind of 1v1s everybody, just takes them out. Balls does die. He took the brunt of the damage when he left that bush, and got used Rupture and used Feral Scream to beat people up. But that's not really what matters. What really matters is that 4 people are going to die. And then 5. At this point, Xmithie and the rest of Ferris can go straight for Baron. Now, what is the response from Orbit? How does High stop this? How does the rest of Orbit stop this? They don't. The enemy team now has Baron. 17 seconds till High response. He doesn't have teleport, and it's going to die before then anyways. But now, what is your role as a jungler when you're in this situation? The enemy team has Baron, you've lost all your outer turrets, you have the ones ahead of your inhibitor and the inhibitor turrets left, as well as Nexus turrets, but how do you protect against the enemy team? Well, you might have to do something that you might not like doing if someone on your team doesn't. You might have to ward. Warding is going to be the big defense if you actually want to stay in the jungle. Ward here, maybe toss one for Dragon just so you know. Aside from that, what do you do besides warding? Well, you kind of do the same thing you did before. You jungle and you look for openings in team fights. The problem is, at this point in the game, 27-minute mark, people have move speed on them. People have ways to get away. You can definitely kill people really easily, but you have to look for the opening, you have to look for the right person. For example, if High goes to gank Olaf right now, how's that going to work out? Well or not well? Well, Olaf doesn't have a lot of mana, but it can very easily just, be that. Be the ultimate, and Moonfall being traded for Olaf's ultimate, which has a very short cooldown, about 80 seconds? 60 seconds, actually. Wow, that is a lot shorter than I thought it was. So Olaf just got completely nothinged by High. High ignored all the damage coming out of Olaf. Not a lot he could really do in this case. And Diana, what's her combo going to do right now? Well, it can do a good amount of damage. It can hurt, for example, Aftermoon quite a bit, but he has to reach that squishy line. And can he do so? Kind of. If he reaches the squishy line, he's done his job very well, but there's going to be people on both teams trying to go for Aftermoon, and, well, Ferris will try and defend him, and it's much easier to defend in this game than go on a very long and chasey offense. So, for example, if Aftermoon is being chased down, he can use his own Make It Rain. Muffin Cutie can use his ultimate and his CC, both of them, both the Zenith Blade and the Aegis of Zonia. And the rest of the team can peel, like, for example, Cho'Gath. So this is the fight Orbit wants. They see Xmithie on his own. Muffin Cutie hasn't been spotted yet, but they have a good idea he's there. And now they're able to, go aggressive on a Mandatory Cloud and the rest of the team. Now, why is this fight not that good? Well, the rest of Ferris will show up. And is this chunk of Orbit stronger than the rest of Ferris? Well, Katarina actually lands a really good ultimate off, gets a full ultimate onto Aframu and Mandatory Cloud, really. Xmithie goes down in the fight, and it's a 2v4. Now, why did that work? Well, the focus of a lot of spells went onto High, and people kind of forgot about Yuzuki once the fight progressed towards, this area right here. Did High do what he needed to do? Yeah. Should he feel confident with that death? Yeah. What did his death let his team do? They stayed to fight, they stayed grouped around him because they just killed him, and at that point, the rest of Orbit jumped on the occasion and said, let's kill him, let's just do it right now. And it set his team into a very, very okay spot given the circumstances. They're still behind 4,000 gold, but they're not behind 10,000 gold, which is important to know. Now, High, what's he going for now? He's going for his Zonias. So he expects to do what he did before. He expects to dash in there to be the brunt of the damage, to be the person taking the most damage as they get focused down by the enemy team, and then he's going to press the Zonias button, which probably will be 2 or 3. He survives. He's able to cast another round of Crescent Strike, another round of Pale Light or Pale Cascade, and he'll be very effective, be very fine. And that's, the strategy he has. And it's important to know every jungler will have a different strategy. What is your strategy as Warwick? Look for a chance to lock someone down with his frenzy, his ultimate. If you lock someone down for 5 seconds, or not 5 seconds, for a second and a half, that's going to be awesome. You can buff your attack speed for 5 to 8 seconds or whatever, and you'll be effective in a team fight. So he just needs to survive, use his attack speed buff, and lock someone down for a second and a half, which is about what a suppression is. Maokai, you want to root someone relatively close to your team, put down an ultimate so that your team doesn't take massive AoE damage and win a fight like that. Diana, you want to ult in, preferably with Crescent Strike on whoever you're ulting onto. Use the pull so everybody stays close together, and then you can AoE down an enemy team. So Diana's going to be an enabler, going to be focused on helping out the team rather than trying to make these big catches, these big one-on-one offensive plays. She can still go for catches, of course, but it's much easier to stop a Diana because she doesn't have hard CC outside of that very brief pull. Now, Baron's respawning relatively soon. Balls and the rest of Ferris got it fairly easily. How can they stop it now? Well, they can go for a big team fight right beforehand if they feel confident in their ability to win it. They can try and stop them as they're doing it, but it may not happen. There's no reliable option here. And this is, I'd say, one of the bigger and scarier moments of getting towards that late game. Because once the enemy team, if they're far enough ahead, starts going for Baron, and if you can't stop them, it means you're so far behind that despite Barry giving a huge buff to the rest of the team, you can't do anything. And this is something important to note. Sometimes what the gold value looks like is not what the reality is. So how is Aframo doing? He's 458. He's at 10,500 gold. What is V-Team like at 11,700? So despite the fact that his team is losing and his team has less gold, V-Team has more than Aframo. So V-Team's a little scarier, and if they can protect him, maybe they can win a fight really easily. If not, maybe not so much. Now, when you start a fight as someone like Hai playing Diana, what is your focus going to be? You want to try and get as many people together. You don't necessarily want to try and get people who are not immune to CC or people who you want to kill. You're trying to get people close to you. Now, if you can get people you want to kill, it's super awesome. It's the coolest thing ever. But if they're too far back and you can't get to them, you got to go with the options you have. And that's, like landing a choke gas rupture into a Malphite and then killing the Malphite afterwards. That's okay. That's fine to do. So they're looking for a good groupage, a good clumping. This will let Levitation flash up, land all of his spells, or, well, his ultimate really, and the rest of the team can back him up. Now, how does Hai do that himself? Go in there, press C. And that's all you do. It's very easy, it's very simple. Knowing when to do it is a scary part. And that's really what makes Diana hard to play. You have to know when you can press the suicide button or not. Now, Orbit's going for a push down mid lane. 33 minute mark, people are hitting 16, 17, 18. Elimination's still level 14. And at this point, you got to be a bit scared once you start seeing the major items being finished on Ferris. Red team, they've picked up 3 dragons at this point. They're looking strong. Can they be stopped? That's something teams tend to ask themselves. Can the enemy team be stopped? The answer should always be yes, of course they can. Sometimes the answer no, and just end up surrendering early. Now they're still looking from a fight from Orbit. Hai is going to be initiating, so he's trying to start something up. He wants to be the one to get caught out, because if the enemy team jumps on him, he can press the Moonfall, and they'll all collapse around him. So, looking for that engagement, They clear Baron. They're feeling confident. The fight starts. Now, this is going to be an example of a bad fight. Let's just watch it, no commentary, in normal motion. Now, why did that go so wrong? Let's watch this again. It's a long fight. In slow motion. This is going to be the last fight of this video. So, Xmithy's coming up. He has oracles. He knows there's no ward there. And he actually just used the axe to see if anybody's in the area. He shows up in the brush, he's getting focused now, and he pops his ultimate. He immediately rushes towards V-Team, sees a GA, and tries to just do whatever damage he can before getting focused. The rest of the Ferris is showing up now, But what is Hai doing? He has to retreat because they're in just two split above a position. Aftermove's going to be able to lock down the rest of his team with his ultimate and do a lot of damage. Hai just has to back off. So now he's using his own use defensively, not really rooting anybody in place. Has to just, be scared. And what is he accomplishing? Nothing. By the time he finally comes out of zone use, by the time he's finally in a relatively safe spot and can actually go in and start being offensive, guess what? They've already lost Katarina, who's one of the big sources of damage. And this is a major problem when you're playing someone like Diana. If you're a squishy initiator and you're being poked down before you can fight, you're not doing much. Mandatory Cloud, he runs over here to the other side of the wall, and once that's happened, he just, he's in a safe spot. He's able to DPS very, very easily from the other side of the wall, and just pokes down the team. V-Team, he's actually doing an incredibly good job, but, too many people were alive. Cho'Gath does go down, but has GA, and they all die. Now, let's talk about Diana. So what did she do in the jungle early on? She got counter-jungled hard, couldn't really do anything, didn't have any options. The response, go for a bit of pressure every now and then for ganks, but don't focus too hard on it. When you see a chance to get some CS and jungle, go for it. Eventually she picks up a kill on Cho'Gath, which she actually sacrificed Blue Wraith for, the enemies, but it wasn't that bad because she didn't die to Mandatory Cloud as a result. But she's able to go ahead and pick up the assist top lane, and then once we saw Hai hit level 6, he was going a lot more aggressive, going for a lot more pressure, and just looking for more situations where he could do stuff. I was looking through the replay, he hit 6, where does he go? He goes bot lane a few times, tries to pick up kills there. He hit 6, where does he go? He goes top lane, he goes mid lane, he's around the map trying to find the opening. Does he pick up kills? Yeah, he picks up quite a few kills. He picked up the assist in that first gank. He picks up a kill trying to 2v2 in the top lane, trying to 1v2 in the bot lane, picks up a kill. And he stays focused on the fact that he's there to back up his team. And he's looking for situations where either the enemy team thinks they have an advantage or the enemy team is likely to gank. And because of that, he's able to get into these fights. And whether they're good or not is questionable. But that's his playstyle. He's looking for the aggression, looking for the fights, and trying to be there to help his team out. Sometimes he will make his own plays, of course, trying to make ganks happen without looking for a counter gank. But the counter ganking kind of worked. Now, that was the video for today. We'll, of course, be finishing this game tomorrow. We got 30-some minutes left, and we'll be going through it relatively slowly. So I'll be seeing you then. Adios for now, folks.